Oh, well, we started at just the right time. So I'm going to reintroduce our guest.
Yes.
And she is Ambrese Montagu. And Ambrese, you're an accomplished integrative health and disability social scientist, and you're a legal scholar because you earned your master's degree from York. Actually, that's where I went, and a Juris Doctorate from the University of Western Ontario. Now, that's two extremely different, like you're in law and you're in health. I don't know how that came to be, but you're passionate about holistic well-being. You strive to empower individuals to enhance their mental, physical, and spiritual dimensions. Now, I know that your goal, and I know people are going to hear this, the audience is going to hear this from you, that as a coach, as a health and life coach, you're hoping to reach as many people as possible and simply to help them enjoy a fuller, happier, healthier life. And you provide resources regarding elimination diets, and you recommend different types of therapies and treatments that you glean from the professionals like us that you listen to, and you take the best from them, you break it down, and then you help people to live a life with less toxicity. So I love the way you say your approach is very simple, because what you basically do is to encourage your clients simply to take better control of their own lives by engaging in one, the physical activity, and to develop meaningful social connections. Sounds long, but I love it. And we met you, just as I said, a few weeks ago, and was really impressed and thought you would be an excellent guest to start the new year, because let's face it, resolutions. Beginning 2024, everybody has made resolutions. And I think statistics says most resolutions has to do with health and weight loss.
And by the end of January, it's all broken.
By the end, some people for the end of the first week, like myself, right? The end of the first week. So I just want, is there anything that you'd like to say, as you know, with that introduction about yourself?
Before you can answer, Ambrose, I just, on behalf of
Ambrese.
Ambrese, before you can answer that question, I just want to say to you, very happy birthday to you. I know you're celebrating your birthday, right? So very happy birthday to you. And once again, a happy new year.
And welcome to the Liquid Green Health Show. Okay.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, so in terms of me, I just want to clarify, I am not a medical doctor at all. I just listen to doctors. I listen to people who I think are wise, and I try to bring that and learn from them, and then share what I've learned and what I feel is helpful to other people and my clients.
And when we met, you were with an elderly gentleman who was like 90. I think he was 93 or 97 or something.
He's old.
He was in his 90s, and you were working with him. Tell us about some of the folks you work with and how you help.
A lot of the people I've worked with actually have given up. They think it's hopeless. And, you know, I started working when he was 88. He couldn't walk with more than 15 minutes at a time. His wife had just died. And, you know, this was a point of crisis, and he felt a hopelessness, and he'd given up, you know, oh gosh, I'm alive another day, I'm waking up. And so for me, it's mind, body, spirit. But when I work with people, I start with diet and nutrition, and supplements help too, but just food is medicine, and better food and the supplements if you can afford them, because I grew up very, very poor, not being able, like, food was a big deal in my house, so like we had it. And so, like, seriously, you know, for people out there, I'm all about, you know, being very, very price conscious, and there's lots of just free ways or very cheap ways to do things, but for those who can afford it, well, wonderful, you know, you have more opportunity really in terms of what you can do. But it's really important to me to sort of say to everybody, even if you don't have any money, even if you don't have a place to live, even if you're going to homeless shelters right now, let's talk and see what you can do, because some of my clients do go to homeless shelters. And I say, and so I have strategies on what to do there too, like avoid the bread and the sweets and things like that. And you can choose your food of limited options, even there carefully. And so even people in going to homeless shelters can be on my program.
Really, that is awesome. Yeah. Really awesome. And I know one of the first things you always talk about, that you mentioned that you talk about, is the process of elimination, because you have to do that first. What does your program look like, or what do you recommend in terms of, that process?
So the basic things that science, I follow science and integrative functional medicine, they call it, but sort of the cutting edge in terms of human beings. So no human being actually needs carbohydrates, is my understanding of science. But we do need good fat, good protein, and good fiber. Those are the three essentials. And then what I'd like to add is good phytonutrients too, that we get in blueberries and vegetables, things like that. So trying to have every meal have FFPP, fiber, fat, protein, phytonutrients.
The fiber, fat, protein, and phytonutrients.
Yeah.
Do you put an emphasis on any one of those?
Absolutely. So people can look at this, but in terms of high quality fats, so high quality fats, but lots of fats to avoid too. I believe in elimination diets. And the question is, how much do you eliminate and what are you left with? So the basics, as somebody who was a plus size woman, I remember going to the Gap, and maybe women can understand. I remember really trying hard to fit into their biggest size 14, and it was a no-go. I was hoping to be in the regular size people stores, and I was pretty much 13, 14 years old, and I didn't realize I was overweight, but I was, and I grew up poor, and then I actually became a cadet, where I went away for summer camp to do cadet training, and they had a mess, and I just ate as much as I could because I knew at home there was no food. So like you got to eat 3 meals a day, plus a snack, and you could go back more and more. So I was, going back more and more and just trying to load up my body as a 13-year-old because I knew I'd go home to no food.
Okay, wow. When you first said elimination, when I think elimination, I'm thinking of the cleansing. That first, before you get on any program, you do a cleanse of some sort, a detox. Are you into that at all? Do you recommend any kind of detox?
Honestly, okay, that's a more complicated question. So can I talk about the basics of the elimination diet, the basic core, and then it expands out? So the basic core, and it sounds extreme, but I'm trying to do anti-inflammatory, living long, living great quality of life, and preventing disease, and trying to have a healthier, more vibrant life. So my program is extreme, and I've been on it for 10 years. Actually 11 years, because my daughter just turned 10 in December. And I started it very seriously, hardcore, when I was pregnant, because I did everything possible to make sure I had a healthy pregnancy after, unfortunately, some miscarriages. And I desperately wanted to be a mom. So what I did was I started off with something called the Pegan Diet by Dr. Mark Hyman. He's an American doctor.
I love him.
Yeah, so I started off with no grains, and recently a lot of universities did a joint paper saying all grains cause inflammation to some degree in all mammals.
Wow.
And so no grains. So that means no, like white rice is actually better than brown rice in terms of being less inflammatory, but no bread. And I love bread, but no bread.
So do we.
Yeah, just no grains. That's number one. no legumes. Legumes, actually, some people do eat them. Pressure cooking them, they contain something called lectins, which is gluten is a type of lectin, and that's inflammatory. And so no, for me, it's just an easier to have a 100% rule of just eliminating things. 80%, you're thinking about things and you're debating, going, well, yes or no. But I'm just like, no. So if you just say no grains, no legumes, although legumes put in pressure cookers are better for you. It decreases the lectin, breaks them down. And then no dairy at all. And and then no bad fats when you can avoid them. So the worst of the offenders are canola oil and vegetable oil, including like things like sunflower oil. But let's focus on good fats of what you can do. Like, yeah, good fats. So focusing on good fats, like olive oil, which is a monosaturated fat.
Coconut oil.
Avocado and coconut oil, great. Butter, if you can get it grass-fed, even better. But hey, that's more expensive, folks. And but just focusing on the better fats. But when I go into restaurants, I kind of make a deal with them, and I just say, I kind of fib a bit, and I just say, listen, I have a huge thing against, I just can't have the vegetable and canola oil. Is there any way in your kitchen you can just cook it with the vegetable oil, or just steam it, or just do something? And often I'm able to work out a deal because I'm like, I can't have this 100%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then on top of that, so no grains, no legumes, no dairy, no bad fats. And the other culprit that I'm trying to avoid is ultra processed food.
Yeah. Well, that's number one, right?
Sometimes, in terms of the modern living, McDonald's is pretty convenient. But trying to avoid ultra processed foods, and that includes inflammatory things. People switch to oat milk and things like that, but it has gluten and pesticides,
a lot of fillers.
And so that's still an ultra processed food. I just learned I used to be a double girl, and now I'm a black coffee person, and with my herbal teas and green teas. It's a switch, but I actually have learned to love it. I love my black coffee. But with black coffee,
yes, we are definitely.
A lot of things that you're mentioning, those are practices that we do, quite often. We're not as disciplined as you are, but we do, incorporate those things into our diet.
And for our listeners, they know how, the information that we presented on the oils.
Oh, yeah.
We had an entire show devoted to the bad oils.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with ghee?
Yes.
Because we've switched a lot. Butter, ghee. Ghee is one of the good ones.
Ghee, I associate with India and Asia. And it's clarified type of butter.
Yes.
And in terms of being anti-inflammatory, that's a wonderful choice. So, let us include the diversity of cuisine out there, and ghee is something that is great. Well, not great, but I use, it's different oils.
Now, you mentioned protein. And I know there's a lot of talk about protein, different types of protein. Is there a specific choice when it comes to protein intake?
Like meat versus veg?
Well, there's a lot of controversy just in red meat in general, even grain-fed and grain-finished meat, in terms of red meat in general. So there's research to say I do restrict I try to get higher quality meat, which is more expensive, so it's a huge treat. Stick to more like bison and lamb or game meat too. But they have it in places like Costco, and there is that stuff, but it's more expensive. What I do personally, my go-to proteins, I live alone, and I have in my freezer, I have wild fish, that the lower mercury stuff, and little packets it comes in, and it's frozen, and I live alone, and I always start my day with protein, FFPP, fiber, fat, protein, phytonutrients. And so what I do is I take I have wild, I mix up my proteins, my fish, so wild cod, wild wild salmon, halibut, things like that. Also, I've heard from Costco, Norwegian farmed fish actually isn't so toxic. So what I do is I rinse it, I put it in some hot water so I can get it out of the thing, boil some water with a touch of salt and just boil it. And boom, 5 minutes later, I have breakfast. Plus, I can easily, that's my go-to. It's so simple. I also use organic, I get the big packs of organic chicken. Well, last time I was in Costco, the regular chicken for all those chicken breasts was $20, and where it says $30 for the organic. And I spent the extra $10. And I do big soups of vegetables and the organic chicken breasts. And then I freeze them in my freezer. So boom, I can just come out. I don't use the microwave, but I put them in, I run them at the outside of the glass container that I got in, there's glass containers with little tops on top that you can freeze. And I run them bottom under hot water so it falls out, plop them in the pot, and then heat it up. And boy, do I have a delicious soup.
I'm going to throw a wedge in the wheel here.
I know.
This is great information. I love it, but food is expensive.
Yes.
Today, it is very expensive for a family of 4 who doesn't have a lot of financial outlay, have to make choices to eating healthy. The bottom line for them is price. When they go into the supermarkets and they look at all the oils there that they want to use, if for them to get good quality oil, they have to put a good chunk of their income out regularly, or to eat good, to eat the way that you are suggesting, or we suggest a lot of times, it's costly. How do they get around this?
The elimination of everything. For example, bread. I'm thinking you're sending your kid to school with
you got to make a sandwich
or something. If it's not, like, what are some of the options then for, say, kids, even when we're trying as a family to eat the way you suggest?
Okay, so in terms of honestly, a really cheap way to do it is root vegetables. I love potatoes, peas, and corn. I avoid those 3: potatoes, peas, and corn. But sweet potatoes, purple yams, carrots, turnips. These are fantastic things. And for me, and when I go pack my lunch, I have that same glass container that I put in the freezer. I can pack my lunch in that. You can wrap it, put it in plastic or wrap it in cellophane, but the whole idea of being able, or a thermos, or that you turn up, but the whole idea of having that container and putting your, it's making, the protein is nice to have, but just having some good fat and buying it in bulk, keeping your oils and your nuts in the fridge because they can go rancid and they last longer. So save your money. And really just, those, make some space in the fridge, but also having portable stuff like nuts, and good nuts. Peanuts are not a nut, they're a legume.
Right.
No way. I find so many people have problems with cashews, for instance. And there's an issue with lectins. People can talk about, there's Dr. Stephen Gundry, a former famous heart surgeon, who talks about low lectins. Gluten is a type of lectin.
Yes.
And trying to do low lectin diets and trying to sort of have some nuts in there. Nuts have protein and fat. I go to Costco personally because it's buy in bulk and divide it up. And when I eat nuts, I make sure that I pretty much have like 4 walnuts. Some almonds. It's better if they're not. You make sure that your walnuts and things are dry roasted or raw. But we'll look out for just the regular stuff because they're often deep fried in things like canola or sunflower oil.
Correct. Now we want to move on a little bit.
Sure.
When it comes to, you said you've worked with folks even on
palliative care.
Yeah. And
absolutely.
Folks who have gone through radiation treatments, etc. To me, this sounds like the diet for people in that condition. But for an average person who's in good health, that enjoys a balanced diet, I am going to be advocating for those people today. because I know I'm a foodie. I told you that before.
Big one
I
too.
would like to eat everything in moderation.
Yeah.
What do you say to me and all the other folks out there who saying, why do I really need to give up bread? Why can't I have a slice of bread, a few times a week? Or why can't I indulge in some of the other things we like, slice of cake, some of the processed things, some ice cream.
And listen, we're from the Caribbean, and there are lots of delicacies that we love to, partake on, not on a regular basis, but every once in a while, you want to go back to your cultural, tastes. Like, what do we do?
Right. So there's something called the SAD diet, Standard American Diet.
We don't follow that.
Okay, but the whole idea is I always tell people, give me 2 weeks, just 2 weeks, because I've read and heard from doctors that the inflammatory response from having a cheeseburger and fries it lasts in your system for it takes a week and a half to recover from. And inflammation is one of the sources of diseases, cancer, heart disease, inflammation of all your organs, fuzzy thinking, and things like that. So the whole idea is I want to live the best life that I can. And so for me, just giving it 2 weeks, it's crazy, because my favorite food used to be, was actually pizza. I love it. It was things like that. But, the whole idea is now that, and I was overweight, I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome. I was miserable. I had some diagnoses of mental health problems, severe depression, and things like that. And I always think better food leads to better thinking, better state of mind, stronger, healthier body. And the whole idea is once you discover this huge, new, beautiful universe where you feel younger, healthier, happier, it's like there's no turning back. It's just like, boom, yes.
So it's a matter of choices and discipline.
And Ambrese, I am going to take you up on it. You said give you 2 weeks.
Yes.
And in front of all our listeners, 2 years ago, I said I was going on with my daughter. We were going on a competition to see who could do the right thing and lose, a few pounds. Of course, I came close to my goal, but I didn't, and she didn't either. So
now you should say, look at me now.
3 years later, I am going to do it publicly with you, and then I'll report and see how it goes. But I'm going to have to do something before I start that. I'm going to have to get rid of Frederick because he is an enabler. And in the household, it is so difficult to have people who try to bring destruction.
I'm not trying to sabotage you. I'm just testing your discipline. That's all I'm doing.
For example, if I'm going to go off bread tomorrow, he's going to make bread or go buy some raisin bread.
Yeah.
That he knows I can't resist.
I have to teach people, how to treat me and boundaries and respect. And the whole idea of saying, hey, I'm actually serious about this. And I invite the people around me to join me to try this out. And so they know it beforehand and they are prepared. But the idea is I make it a community thing. But I don't enforce anybody else, but I say, here are my boundaries and please respect me and the choices I've made. And this is important to me.
So
when I bring in my stuff, please respect what I brought in and don't touch it. That's all. With that, folks, we're going to take a break, and we're going to go to some email that has been coming in. And the first one I'm going to be reading. This is from Laurie, and Laurie said, "Are you listening, Fred? You see, and she sent a picture of cookies. Are you listening, Fred, to your guest, Fred? No more of this."
And right? Ambrese, they send cookies because our guests know by now that Frederick, he has been such an offender. He used to hide the Oreo cookies in the glove compartment of the car.
And that's not what today's show is about, folks.
He stopped doing that now, but they know who they're talking about.
Okay, here's another email from Mary, and Mary is asking, "Hello, Liquid Green, is your guest an author?"
Ambrese, have you thought of writing anything, a book, a program?
Yeah, I'm developing my website. It's ambrese.com. And just like my email address is ambrese, AMBRESE at gmail.com. But the thing is that there's one thing for the elimination diet, and it starts off with no grains, no dairy, no legumes, no bad fats, no ultra processed food. But then for people who want to take it further, there's things like no nightshades if you're having digestional problems. There's trying to focus on oxalates, low oxalates, that you can look them up. The kidney stones and things like that are caused by plants, eating plants. So things like raspberries, kale, and kiwi are things high in oxalates, which you think are healthy foods. And so for some of my clients, I'm like, where I really love cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, and things like that. I say to people, and it's always wonderful to steam them because one, it reduces some harmful chemicals and such, but two, it breaks down the cell barrier. So I love steamed stuff.
And we're gonna come back to that. We're gonna get through a couple more emails, but remind me to pick up just where you left off, because we were talking about the thyroid and the thyroid issue when we spoke earlier during the week, and I want to resume with that.
Okay, here's another email, and this one is for our guest. You know what? I'm going to read that one last so she can answer that question. Here's one from Carl. Is Janet now going to be a contestant on Dancing with the Stars? You go, girl.
Well, Carl, it's funny you mentioned that because we need to do a fundraiser, and I go to the gym probably 5, but mostly 4 times a week. And one of the things I enjoy the most, there's a lady there and she teaches line dancing, and I just love it. So I'm going to be bringing to a group, the Africa Arise. This year we're doing Africa Arise with, we're celebrating with Wealth Changers Alliance. It's a new group we're into right now. And we're celebrating, this year is actually the final year that the UN declared for the decade of people of African descent. And it ends this year after 10 years. And so there's going to be a lot of celebration. And that's one of the things I want to do is a dance-a-thon.
Okay, no more long-winded answers, okay? Hello from Toronto. This one is from Jane. Hello from Toronto. We had a snowstorm, but Liquid Green will keep us warm. Happy New Year. Excited about your guest today.
Wonderful.
All right, thank you for that. Here's one from Dawn. You're back. Happy to your granddaughter.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, you left that out. Happy birthday to your granddaughter. We missed you. Your topics are so helpful to us. So glad that you're here. Happy New Year. Listening to you from Orlando, Florida.
Oh, and I know folks who went to Florida to get away from the cold, and I heard it was cold in Florida. So there's
one from Jim. Hi, Cox. It's exciting. Welcome back. Happy birthday to your granddaughter. We love the show, and thanks for being here. Get into Kyle. Kyle says, question for your guest. Do life coaches ever need life coaches? Just asking, right? We'll let you answer that in a minute. Brian says, is Janet doing a cold dip this year? Boy, they're still tagging you on that one, Janet.
Well, guess what? I did not do the polar dip this year. I thought about it up to a few days before, but guess what? It was actually warmer than it was last year.
Yeah, much warmer.
So we saw people just lounging, didn't we?
Yeah.
When we looked at it. So
one from Florence, and Florence says, we hope that the Coxes and everyone at Liquid Green had a wonderful Christmas and a very happy New Year. Did the Coxes make any New Year resolutions? If so, may I ask what they are? Is Janet going to the International Space Station this year? Thank you. Boy, they really think you're an adventurous person, right? No, I didn't. Well, yeah, I didn't. I do have a resolution. My resolution is for people to stop sending me those, clips of those religious clips.
But you can't stop that.
Well, that's my resolution.
But no, that's not a resolution.
Yes, I want them to stop. That's my resolution.
I don't know.
Here's one from Sadie, and Sadie says, Coxes, who needs a life coach? We have Janet. All right.
So we're gonna start with that one.
Yeah. And but we're going to get back to
we have so many to get back to, but let's go ahead.
Mike said, this is the final one I'm going to read. We will be listening today, Cox family. Make it good.
And that's what we're trying to do, right?
So getting back to our guest, you ended off with, we were talking about the cruciferous
but before we do that, do coaches need coaches? Life coaches need life coach?
Okay, so I grew up in Mississauga, only child, single mom, poor. And I was very isolated and such like that. And so right now I live by myself. I'm in Toronto, and I have, I'm trying to always build social connections. In terms of the longevity research, having social connections is important, but those are skills that I teach people, because not everybody who's grew up so isolated like me knew how to, knew table manners, knew how to talk, how to listen to people, how to try to form those relationships. So the life coaching is part of it in terms of teaching social skills of how to be cooperative with people. But my life coaching skills right now are honestly, I rely on these headphones that I charge up, and I wear them I go to a gym. I put money and investment into belonging to a gym. Actually, I belong to Good Life Canada, so I can go anywhere, and it's kind of really exciting because I can go to different gyms.
Like the YMCA, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And so but I listen to my podcast because it's easier than reading a book, and so when I'm on the transit, when I'm walking along, when I have some downtime, I'm trying to make it more productive than I used to, be really into Netflix and television. I've spent so much of my life watching tons of television, and now what I focus on is learning and trying to be more productive.
Very good tool to have.
Yeah, so my life coaches are my podcasts. So I listened to the three big ones that I'd listened to and they all pretty much are on that cutting edge of leading technology and interviewing incredibly smart and incredible people and exposing me to ideas and I have no affiliation. I'm not getting any money. I don't sell any supplements. I take lots of supplements. I try to have my elimination diet, but I listen to Dr. Mark Hyman, the Doctor's Pharmacy. I listen to Dr. Stephen Gundry, previously a famous heart surgeon, who's into low lectin diets. And then I also listen to Dr. Dave. No, he's not a doctor. He's just a lay person, but a smart guy that doctors actually go to for medical advice. Just like me, I have doctor clients. I have professional athletes and I have doctor clients because they know I'm up on the research. But Dave Asprey, known for his bulletproof coffee.
Okay.
Wow.
And Lumen, he invented the Lumen, I think it was. Okay. That checks your blood, your metabolic rate.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that.
Okay. So now we can go back to the cruciferous foods, because we were talking about folks that have received radioactive treatments and how important it is in terms of the nutrition and eliminating so many foods. And you actually told me, because I went to my doctor this week with thyroid. I was diagnosed as a teenager with hyperthyroidism. And so I've been taking, once they've knocked it out, I had no idea for so many years how important it was. I didn't pay much attention. Now I am realizing that I am lucky, I'm fortunate, because I should have been paying so much attention to this thyroid issue, because it just affects so many things, systems. It affects all the other systems in your body, right?
Body's thermostat.
And tell us about some of the patients that you have that you've, helped with these conditions. And as you say, why would the cruciferous vegetables be a problem?
So first of all, I've actually seen people, just friends of mine, just walking around with a huge belly. And I'm like, you need to, just thin frames, but huge belly. I'm like, you need to see a doctor. And I'm like, get your thyroid checked. And sometimes it's from a hypothyroid, a slow thyroid, not producing enough. And so if you get that thyroid checked, then there's medications, Synthroid, I know of. I'm not a doctor, but I have. That's what people have. I have clients with no thyroids, because I've had thyroid cancer. But the idea is that avoiding foods that are cruciferous, millet, the more you cook it, supposedly there's a certain acid that the idea of paying attention to food and steaming it is better. But usually I want people to have those phytonutrients. Those are things like blueberries, blackberries, and cruciferous. Like I want people to have berries every day, blueberries, cranberries, pomegranate seeds, blackberries. Those are some of my favorites. And I love people to have cruciferous vegetables every day, as well as dark leafy greens, but not kale. And be careful of broccoli too. Not broccoli, spinach too, in terms of its there's some things where I remember one doctor saying, kale and spinach, for some people are like swallowing razor blades for their body.
Really? Okay.
So just things that you think are healthy, and be careful of those raspberries. They're tough on the kidneys potentially, and but just trying to say to people, let's try to work within things. Like I love mushrooms. Hooray to mushrooms. Button mushrooms are pretty much like, if you're going to go cremini versus button mushrooms, go for the cremini and go for a variety of mushrooms. But mushrooms are my friend. So, but just the idea that, pay attention and know that, especially raw broccoli and cauliflower and Brussels sprouts can be highly problematic for people, aggravating. It seems like from the research I've read, to thyroid issues. And you want to be less aggravating, less inflammatory, and trying to calm down your system rather than, have razor blades in it.
We also talked about the ketosis, the keto diet.
Yeah.
When we were, discussing, and you've talked about the good fats, etc., the high protein, the less carbs. Can you give us some information? Because that's one of the controversial areas. Mm-hmm. Some people say keto is fantastic. It's good for weight loss. And I think in young children that had epileptic seizures, that's how they discovered that ketosis was such a fantastic thing for them to do, because it reduced the number of seizures that these kids were having. But now, so many people are liking the keto diet, but now some of these same health folks that you and I listen to, it's almost like this or that. So many of them say keto, yes, for a short time. Some say keto, why? No, because you do need those carbs. Yeah. And what is your take?
It's not sustainable.
Right. What's
Yeah, so for me, keto's pretty extreme, and I like my phytonutrients that I get from and I get frozen organic blueberries and strawberries and things because it's cheaper in bulk. Just that's another trick I have to try to reduce the costs. But what I've listened to, there's a podcast and such by Dr. Mark Hyman where he interviews 4 experts on ketogenic diet. Mm-hmm. And it talks about one doctor, a woman saying, hey, I had diabetic, not just pre-diabetic, but diabetic clients, and putting them on ketosis. To their surprise, they went from 100 units of insulin a day to nothing within a couple of weeks. Like, that's a revolution. Or Harvard psychiatrist saying, I put my schizophrenic or OCD severely, people with significant mental health issues, and wait a minute, boom, a ketogenic diet. Or I had stage 4 cancer of blah, where radiation therapy was needed. And even though I needed a feeding tube and that, I was able to work with the things, and I was able to, and now I'm cancer free. So this is a revolution. To one of my best friends out there, Steph, I said to her, your birthday gift, your Christmas gift to me would be spending 33 minutes listening to this one podcast by Dr. Mark Hyman on the ketogenic diet, because I thought she and people we know would be so informative. And please listen to this diet and this podcast and consider the ketogenic diet. And then I said to her more recently, it was my birthday yesterday, proudly 48. But let's do this together. And even so, let's do this as a team together and try this out, because it's a hard program to stick with. My
Mhm.
program sounds pretty extreme as it is. No grains, no dairy, no legumes, no ultra processed food, and no bad fats. But those are, and you just go 100%, like, nope, I don't do that. Of course, eliminating alcohol, even better, but that's tough too. That's a one that's emotionally, triggering and difficult. But
Red wine is okay, right?
well, some say in moderation, but the idea is, and those are personal choices. It's saying, well, for people who, are, making it a family, or, a sort of a group thing of, let's do for people who are facing very significant things. The whole idea of saying, let's all do this together. It's not going to harm us. It is, let's experiment, and let's do this as a team and cooperate, and rely on each other, split food things, make meals and do things like that. So we're not alone in this, because I find it personally very daunting.
Yes. And we also talked about our microbiome because my little granddaughter, who's 5, I swear to you, Ambrese, every time,
yeah.
every single time she comes to our house, she says, could you please play the microbiome? She wants to see
Yeah.
the
On YouTube,
on the
microbiome.
microbiome.
Yeah.
And
she's 5 years old.
Yeah. Oh,
and yeah, she'll call and she'll say, oh, Nana, Papa, my microbiome is going to be happy because I ate this or I ate that. But she also eats a lot of carbs. She loves her dumplings and, her dad bakes cakes and stuff. So just inform us. We've done the shows on the microbiome, but
tell us about the importance of the microbiome.
Right. So the whole idea is food is medicine, and what the science and doctors that I've been listening to, everything points to it, is so much disease and chronic conditions and things that are going to decrease your quality of life, cause disease and things like that start in the gut. And so the whole idea of trying to encourage good bacteria, fermented foods, there's probiotics, there's certain vegetables and fruits that promote the growth of the good bacteria, and then the health promoting stuff, and in trying to decrease the amount of the bacteria that causes problems in the system. So so the idea that a bad gut leads to bad thinking. And so I really, I always start with the gut, and there's I work with not only foods and the fermented stuff like kimchi and sauerkraut, and those are fantastic potentially for some people, but the idea that I want people to try to realize that the new research, if you're having chronic diarrhea, or if you're pooing less than 3 or less times per week, that's actually, but from my research, considered severe constipation. Then like you might want to have a doctor, find one, but then talk to a doctor. Talk to, maybe if you're lucky to get a gastrointestinal doctor. There's new medications. There's new research saying that if you get food poisoning or something like C. difficile, C. diff, things like that, that actually are on antibiotics, which kill, sort of the good bacteria. All of these things, you're sort of, you have one episode or something, but they have long-term effects. But you can actually intervene with the health of food, nutrition. There's drugs that doctors can give you, and supplements too. And the whole idea of take this very seriously. And if you're, like if you have an infection, things like that, and you need antibiotics, well, then realize that, yes, you're treating the acute condition, but let's look long-term and take it seriously.
And guess what, Ambrese, we told you before that our show goes like 1 hour, really lasts 22 minutes because it goes so quickly. And we're practically out of time. It's already 6:23.
Yes.
And we had so much more we wanted to talk about. We wanted to talk about the pre-diabetes and diabetes and what's the difference, but we're going to have to save that for another time.
Yep.
You have mentioned the probiotics, and we also know about prebiotics, right? So I know you're very passionate about this. And what we're going to do this year, Frederick, when we say we're going to invite folks back, if we need to do another week, we would like to have you back because, as you say, you know, you have doctors as your clients, you know. So let's just get to we ask people all the time to read us the emails, and there's just 3 more that we want to get to.
Yeah.
And then we're going to ask you to tell us about your
how
they can reach you.
how they can reach you if you have a website to see.
Yeah.
But let me get to that email.
Yeah,
This one,
closer
the one with
to-
Greg you're
yeah.
talking about?
Mhm.
Yeah. Greg wrote in saying, very interesting guest today. However, a lot of information that she is telling us kind of contradicts a lot of things online from reputable health sites. What to believe?
And therefore, there is always controversy because depending on who you listen to and what your situation is and
Yes.
what, you know,
There's so much information out there. And I guess
That-
this is what this person is asking. What do we believe?
Yeah.
Right.
So-
And in other words, like, how do they pick the right information to
And
use?
I believe in a program like Ambrese's, it's draconian to say you're going to just start and do it, boom, right away. I'm going to try that, right? I'm really going to talk with you after. And perhaps next week I'll invite to see if we can find 5 or 10 people who want to do it along with me. Right? I'm not Fred. And I love my Netflix still. And on Netflix, they did an amazing study with twins. And I would love to have spoken to you more about that as well. So officially, we're going to invite you back another week. All right, officially.
Just to touch on Greg's question, I think basically what you have to do is do the research and choose what is best for you. Because yes, there is a lot of information out there, and it could be conflicting to what you hear from other people. So the answer to that, Greg, is to do your research, look at many videos that you know, that is available to you.
That you mentioned, Dr. Mark, I love him. I listen to him all the time. He's fantastic.
Right.
And he looks like a bodybuilder. He looks more like a bodybuilder than a scientist, you know, a researcher, a doctor.
Here's another email. We're almost out of time. This one is from Ken. And Ken says, Fred is so funny. We love this guy. What a cat.
The part, what a
Be
cat.
well.
That's not a compliment.
No.
But he's funny.
But he's funny. Right? And he said, be well. Okay. I'll do
we
that.
love you, Ken.
But we love you, Ken. Thank you very much. All right.
And Steve says, hey, Coxes, the dance-a-thon sounds great. Like your guest today. Good advice.
Very good advice.
And let's see if we can do one last one. Hey, Coxes, what is your guest's website? So could you tell us that?
We're going to let you take the opportunity to promote yourself. Tell us how we can reach you. If you have a website and a phone number, go ahead.
Sure. So my name is Ambrese Montagu. My email address is just personal, Ambrese, AMBRESE, 7 letters, ambrese@gmail.com. You can find me at ambrese.com. My phone number is you get to talk to me. You know, I don't know who's going to call, but 647-716-9988. And I have 2 things that I want to tell people is like, I deal with a lot of skeptical people and they just want to come, pretty much people want to lose weight and they get on my program and suddenly like, they don't need the Viagra or, you know, their mental health. They're like, ooh, or their energy levels. I'm like, oh, you know, there's lots of other, you know, positive things. But the first thing is start the program. Just give it 2 weeks. Don't listen to me. And just the anti-inflammatory diet. Try it for 2 weeks and get a tape measure. Measure yourself because what you measure, what you do not measure, you cannot track. So start at the beginning with the tape measure. Know your waist size and step on a scale. So, and I encourage my clients and students, whatever, to just every day step on that scale and track it, just a daily thing, so you can see that progress as you shed weight if you need to. But the other thing is that my little trick that I do for my instant stacks and intermittent fasting is also important, giving your body time to rest. But my little trick is I go on sale and I'm not supporting a particular brand, but there's these baby food things. This one's pear, apple, broccoli, there's flax.
Sorry, Ambrese, we have 2 minutes.
Yes.
We're going to have to bring you back. Or you know what? We'll talk with you and we'll send out an email. All right, we'll send out an email like we did before.
Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end, folks. Our guest today has been Ambrese Montagu, and she's an accomplished integrative health and disability social scientist. She is passionate about holistic well-being, and she strives to empower individuals to enhance their mental, physical, and spiritual dimensions. And with that, Ambrese, we would like to say thank you very much for gracing the very first show of
brain fog
of 2024. It's been a pleasure, and we certainly will be talking with you, in the future, right? So
during the week, I'll give you a call because I'm going to do this.
Right. Thank you. Very good. And as usual, the show has come to an end, and we want to say once again, let's wish her a happy belated birthday. And at the end of the show, we want to conclude by saying this: it's essential to remember that good health is at the core of human happiness and overall well-being. It plays a pivotal role in contributing to prosperity, wealth, and even economic progress. As healthy individuals, we enhance our productivity and may even extend our lives. Until we reconvene next Sunday, same time, same station, folks. Prioritize your well-being.
And just before you say this is Janet and Fred, Gary, we just want to say it's great to be back, and we wish you
thank you very much.
Abundant health
for 2024. And
well, I'll be healthy now if I listen to Ambrese.
You definitely
you better start doing that on a regular basis. Folks, this is Janet and Fred Cox saying, let's stay healthy on Reality Radio 101. Have a good evening.
Thank you for listening to the Liquid Green Health Show with your hosts, Fred and Janet Cox, right here on Reality Radio 101.